Saeed Farouk and his wife Tashfeen Malik fired between 65 and 75 times at the Inland Regional Center using 2 assault rifles and 2 handguns. All of the weapons were purchased legally, 2 were bought by someone else. They also left a device at the center which was made up of 3 connected pipe bombs and a remote control, which apparently did not work. The pair had more than 1,600 bullets with them when they were killed during a shootout with police. At home, they had more than 3,000 rounds of ammunition, 12 pipe bombs, and tools to make improvised explosive devices. Farouk is a U.S. citizen. Malik came to the U.S. from Pakistan on a fiancé visa in 2014. Farouk was an employee at the Inland Center. There are reports he left a holiday party there angry. The FBI is also looking at his recent travel to the Middle East and evidence he was in contact with those with terror links. Joining me now are Andrea Cabral, former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary. Good to see you. Former Suffolk County Sheriff, too. Jack Levin, Professor Emeritus at Northeastern, co-director of the Brudnick Center on Violence and Conflict, and co-author of more than 30 books like Mass Murder, America's Growing Menace, and Extreme Killing, Understanding Serial and Mass Murder. Good to see both of you.
Thank you.
Jack, based on what we know so far, 2 people, man and a woman with a child, outwardly normal. Is this the typical image of a mass murderer in the United States, or are these people outliers?
Well, most mass killers are loners. They do it alone. They're kind of isolated from other people. They don't bring their wife in on it. They don't have a child at home and then cart it off to the grandparents. So this is different.
So what does that say to you?
Well, I don't think it says very much, actually. I think that in this case, you had 2 people who had exactly the same idea in mind. Was it terrorism? Yeah, I think that there is a certain degree of terror that they wanted to spread as much as they could. Because keep in mind, they use guns, but they also used explosives. Those killers that use explosives attempt to kill as many people as possible. They don't single out particular victims for death.
Okay, I want to follow up on this terrorism. I mean, the president said relatively obliquely that it could be, we still don't know the why, it could be a combination of things, workplace grievance and terrorism. You're a former DA, you worked in a DA's. Does that sound right to you?
I think it probably was a hybrid. I think they were clearly planning to do something to inflict some sort of mass casualty somewhere, and perhaps the holiday party just gave him an opportunity to I was going to say kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and that would be ill-advised.
I was going to say that was the trigger for another
exactly,
horrible
it was
choice of words,
exactly to be the trigger for it, because he was already angry at those people.
You know, why do you get upset, Jack? We had you on the radio today when people say there's been more than 1 mass shooting, not killing, mass shooting, 4 more people killed or shot, gunfire, in the last year. That's factually accurate, isn't it? Why are you so upset about it?
Because what happens is that people think we have a mass murder every day in this country. That's what people think. And the
numbers are not up in terms of the murders themselves. Mass murders are not trending up?
They really aren't. Over the last 4 decades, they're volatile. So one year they may go up, the next year they go down. But the truth is that we haven't seen a trend over 4 decades. People think so. Actually, if you look at terrorism alone, not just mass murder, but all forms of terrorism.
In this country or worldwide?
In this country, because worldwide we've seen a spike.
Yeah.
But in the United States, the 70s, that's when acts of terrorism peaked.
Weather underground, that sort of thing.
That's right. Yeah. And we've seen a decline ever since. But it doesn't look that way, because when you read the newspapers, it says, you know, that we have 1 mass shooting every day.
But yes, it is factually accurate, even if it gives you a perception that you don't like, correct?
It's not just that I don't like it. It's that the average person is misled by that.
You know, today what happened is what happens, Andrea Cabral, after every one of these things, is the debate about gun control happened. And no matter how you try to direct a conversation, it always gets back to the same thing. These weapons were purchased legally. So that gives an argument for those who say, well, that's why we need gun control. These assault rifles shouldn't be punished. If there was a law against assault rifles, I assume none of the 3 of us would go buy an assault rifle. But if it turns out you were hell-bent on destruction and carnage, the fact that the law may say you can't buy one of those assault rifles, it's not going to stop people like this from getting them, is it?
It might. And really we shouldn't be looking at that. There are always going to be criminals who gain access to weapons who are very, very determined. The point is that we ought not to make it as easy as possible. And I think that's what's not being articulated here. It shouldn't be this easy to do it. No one needs
But
an assault
so is it you're saying it's on the margins, but we should do it anyway, or it's more
We should do
significant
what's on the margins, and we should do what's well toward the center to make sure that people don't have ready access to guns.
How
like
much
this.
difference would that actually make here?
I think it would make a big difference.
Why?
You look at Australia, where they had a terrible massacre.
Port Arthur in the mid-90s.
That's right. And so they instituted a law that banned all semi-automatics. And what happened? They haven't had any mass murders since. So now, can we do the same thing? I don't think we're going to do it. You know, for example, we banned for 10 years assault rifles, and it made no difference at all. But you see, most of these mass killers use semi-automatic handguns, and they weren't banned.
You know, I think one of the things you're worried about, I think it's pretty obvious when you said that those numbers I mentioned a minute ago give false impression to people.
Yeah.
There are a lot of scared people. People called the radio today talking about a woman called and said how she was, when she went to the mall or Toys R Us, whatever it was, she tried to get out of there as quickly as possible. She's looking around her as she goes, which leads to the inevitable question, Jack Levin. Preventability. Are any of these things preventable? I mean, maybe one here, but the bottom line is, no matter what we do, these are going to happen, aren't they?
Well,
if
we're not
someone really wants to do this kind of
Well,
thing.
you know, we're not going to make our buildings into safe havens or fortresses. That's not going to happen. Are we going to ban semi-automatics? I really doubt it. Maybe we could reduce the size of clips so that a killer has to reload. And while he's reloading, we might be able to apprehend him. That would possibly reduce
Sort of like what
the
happened to
body
Gabby
count.
Gifford's case when he
That's
was apprehended.
exactly right. That wouldn't be a bad
But
idea.
even if volume decreases, these are not preventable,
No,
are they?
I don't think so.
Do you feel differently about that?
I don't think that they're all going to be preventable, but I don't think that that is a reason not to take all of the reasonable steps we can to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't
Is there
have
more
them.
you do? We only have 30 seconds left. Other than the gun thing, which realistically speaking is not happening in Congress anytime soon. What else
right.
would be at the top of your list? Quickly, Andrea Cabral.
Well, I do think we have to focus more on addressing people with mental health issues, although I don't think that the two things, that one necessarily leads into
course
the
not,
other.
yeah.
And there ought to be less focus on violence generally, and we need to start talking about it as a public health issue and addressing the trauma that is caused by gun violence. in this
15
country.
seconds. What would be on your
That's
list?
a good point. Let's not focus so much on mass murder. Let's focus on the 15,000 single victim murders. We can prevent those.
Fair enough. Andrea Cabral, nice to see
Nice
you.
to see you.
Jack Levin, as always, thanks so
Thank
much
you.
for your time. Appreciate it.